If you've been coming to this class for a while, you should have noticed by now that it's repetitive, right? I may vary the way I'm saying something, but I'm saying the same thing all the time, right? I mean, this boils down to some pretty straightforward, concrete facts. Non-duality is about the understanding that the idea that you have of who you are is not what you are. The idea you have of who you are is not what you are. It is a conditioned, learned identity. It's a real identity, but it's no different than your driver's license. You're not your driver's license, right? Your driver's license is an identity, but you're not your driver's license. It's the same as that. The implications of that are very profound. The implications of that range from anywhere from being able to stop reacting in life and start to respond, to be able to relate to your body differently, to relate to the people that you're close to in your life differently, be able to relate to life itself differently. And the reason that that's the case is because the identity that we are, the idea that we have of ourselves, includes identifying with the body, that I am my body, I am my personality. And the problem with that, and the reason that that results in so much human suffering, is because that's unstable. It's a time body. The body is born and the body will die. Anything that is born must die. If you consider yourself to be your personality came into existence when you learned your name and you began to learn about yourself as a person. And that personality, if you consider that to be you, will die with the body. So the good news is, that's one of the reasons, I don't know if any of you who are Christians, they at one point they had on the Bible the good news, right? The good news is, the truth is, that if you're not your body and if you're not a person and you are the awareness is timeless. The awareness doesn't change. The awareness is stable. And as you continue to practice to pay attention and recognize that to be who you are, everything starts to reorganize itself and everything starts to change. You start to be able to relax more. You start to be able to stop identifying with thinking as much. So it's not me thinking anymore, the thoughts are just happening. So it's transformational, it's profound. And it's not at all like the way people think it is in terms of what reality is and who they think they are. It takes some time to learn about these things. It's a good idea to learn from a variety of different sources so that you understand this is not one person's theory, this is not a belief system, this is the truth. And the definition of the truth is that which does not change is true. It's always true. It stays true. Everything else changes. And so it's never true, right? Whatever is true right now is not true in the next moment. Whatever was true about you last year is not true now, right? So everything changes and everything is impermanent, but the truth doesn't change. It stays the same all the time. Right? And so it offers you a whole new possibility for living your life that allows you to no longer suffer as a person. So one of the ways that this is spoken about by some of the teachers is talking about being free from suffering, being free from limitations, being free from the destiny of the body, being free from everything that's always changing and unstable. And this freedom is not freedom for you, it's freedom from you. Freedom from the person. Freedom from the idea that you're this limited version of awareness called a person. So, that's the gist of it, you know what I mean? I mean, if you listen to a lot of these teachers, it takes about 10 minutes to say that, and then that's it. The rest of it is just repetition or elaboration. But the thing that isn't repetition or elaboration is the practice that you can do, because to understand these things, to appreciate these things, to believe in these things, to see the reality of these things, in and of itself isn't going to make a difference. In fact, the difference it could make is you could become more miserable, because now you know there's a way out, but you're not experiencing that freedom. You're not experiencing that way out, because it's not going to happen just because you find out about it. And this is where meditation comes in. You have to begin to practice paying attention moment to moment to this awareness that's the truth of who you are. It's always here. It's always been here. It's not something that's going to happen. It's not something that you're imagining. It's not something that you're creating. It's always been the truth about who you are. And so when you recognize it, the people who have really seen it clearly and experienced it notice right away that this has always been this way. This isn't new. It's always this way. It's always true. So I have a few questions, and I'm going to look at the questions. Are we still aware in the dream state or while we are sleeping? Okay. Well, let's see. One of the ways that a teacher would answer this question is they would say, which dream state are you referring to? Because in these teachings are saying that what you call the waking state is a dream state. Right? So there's the dreaming that you do when you go to sleep at night, and then there's the dreaming that you do when you wake up. Because if you understand the implication that you are not who you think you are, then you're dreaming that you're that, right? What is a dream, right? A dream is something that's not real, right? And so what we're saying is that the person that you've considered yourself to be isn't real. It's not actual. It doesn't actually exist. It got created when you got your name and you got conditioning. So it's a real idea, it's a real belief, but it's not an actuality. Awareness is actual. Awareness is an actuality. It's actually there. The person that you consider yourself to be is not actually there. So are we still aware in the dream state? Well, when you sleep at night and you're dreaming, you are aware that you're dreaming, right? So yes, you are still aware in the dream state. Awareness is constant. Awareness doesn't stop being awareness, right? So yes, you are aware of the dream state. Even when you are in dreamless sleep, right? Dreamless sleep, the deepest form of sleep, the dreamless sleep, right? There's an awareness, but you can't relate to it the way you could relate to a dream, because the way you relate to a dream is you can relate to what happened in the dream. You can tell a story. Things happen in the dream. But in dreamless sleep, nothing is happening. So you can't talk about being aware of nothing. But when you wake up, right, you can recall having slept and time has passed and now you're awake. So awareness is a constant. Awareness doesn't, your awareness doesn't shut off. Doesn't shut off, it's a constant. If the ego has been formed over a lifetime, it would seem nearly impossible to overcome or drop the ego to get to awareness. To realize the true self, or awareness, is it necessary to get beyond the ego? How is it possible to drop the ego and realize the truth of who we are if we've been conditioned for many years to believe in the ego? Is this a matter of faith in what cannot be perceived? This is a good one. This is a good one. I could talk a week on this, right? But I like it, you see, because this is what I want. I mean, if you're asking me these questions, right, then it tells me that you're engaging with this, right? Questioning it, doubting it. And because the thing about the awareness that you are is you need to confirm it. You need to confirm that it is the truth. That's one of the reasons why Mooji created the invitation to freedom. It's a process that you go through in which you can confirm the truth. You can confirm, yes, there is awareness there. And it's very important for you to confirm the truth. So if the ego has been formed over a lifetime, it would seem nearly impossible to overcome or drop the ego to get to awareness. It is impossible to overcome or drop the ego. It is impossible. The good news is you don't have to overcome it or drop it. All you have to do is know that that you're not that. That's all. You can't drop it. If you were to wake up and know yourself as awareness, that awareness is formless, timeless, right? Has no form, has no shape, doesn't exist in time. So you can't be that. You can't be nothing. You can't be no thing. You can't be awareness in the world. You have to have a vehicle to be in the world. And so when we come into this life, you are incarnate. You come into the body. That's your vehicle. That's your vehicle. That's what you're going to travel through this time and space world in, is this body. And the ego is inevitable. Everybody's got to taste the ego. Everybody's got to learn to be an ego so you can live in the world. So you can live in this dualistic reality that we share with one another. So when you wake up, it's not about, and one of the reasons this is a good question is because there's a lot of misunderstanding about this, the idea that you have to overcome the ego, that you have to kill the ego. No. Now, you don't have to kill anything. All you have to do is know that it's not you. And when you know that it's not you, you have a lot more of a ability to reorganize it. You have a lot more ability to reorganize it, to have it, and it will change naturally. When you stop considering it to be you, it will change naturally because now you have a new orientation. Now you have a new reality. And so the ego will start to reshape over time to be consistent with the truth, to be consistent with who you really are. That'll happen naturally, but only if you are recognizing the truth of yourself and practicing, experiencing that, which you can do in meditation. To realize the true self or awareness, is it necessary to go beyond the ego? No, that's what I just said. It's not necessary. In fact, it's not possible to go beyond the ego. How is it possible to drop the ego and realize the truth of who we are if we've been conditioned for many years to believe in the ego? Well, again, you don't have to drop the ego. And yes, you've been conditioned to believe you are the ego. That's why it takes time to break the habit. That's why it takes time to decondition. It takes time to deconstruct that belief system that you have about yourself as an ego. Is this a matter of faith in what cannot be perceived? No. That's the best part. That's the best part of the truth. You don't have to believe in the truth. The truth is immediately and directly available. The truth of who you are is in your chair. Awareness is immediately and directly available. It doesn't require belief. The only thing that requires belief is something that is not available for you to directly experience, right? A lot of people have faith in God, right? Why? Because God's not here. We have to believe that God is somewhere, and so we have these ideas and beliefs about it. But you're here. You don't have to believe you're here. It's the most immediate thing you know. It's the truest thing you know is that you're here. What's that mean? Your awareness. The awareness is what's here. It's not a matter of faith. And you say a matter of faith in what cannot be perceived. But again, you see, the idea that you have to perceive something, that you have to see, seeing is believing, right? That's the general idea that people have, right? But in this case, it's not seeing is believing, it's being is believing. You can't see what you are, but you're being it all the time, right? So you don't have to believe. Do you have to believe you're here? Do you understand? Do you have to believe you're here? No, it's not necessary. It's obvious. And therefore, the truth is obvious. Therefore, the awareness that you are is obvious. The reason that it doesn't seem to be obvious is because based on our conditioning, we're paying attention, right? We're paying attention to the thought process. And the thought process is always a narrative about reality. It is not a direct perception or experience of reality. It's a narrative about reality. And the narrative that it is about reality is the narrative that people agree is real and true. And the reality that people agree is real and true, one of the most fundamental things that people agree is real and true is that you are your body, and the voice in your head is you, right? That's the common understanding, right? So what we're saying here is that that's not true, and the evidence speaks for that. The evidence proves that that's not true. The problem is very few people are paying attention to the evidence. People are paying attention to what they think. They're not paying attention to who they are. Do you understand? So if you want to pay attention to who they are, all you have to do is notice the awareness is here. It's never been here. I mean, it's never not been here. It's always here. And you don't have to pay attention to it like it's something out here. All you have to do is notice it's you. It's aware of itself. It's aware of itself, and that makes it different than anything else. It's aware of itself. So good question. Do you concur with the statement that we must consciously hold on to a positive thought or feeling for a minimum of 15, seconds before it leaves any imprint in the neuron? Velcro Teflon theory of the mind. There are more attached to the problem than to the solution, you might say. Rick Hansen. I'm assuming that meditation helps with this. What do you think? I read this in Richard Rohr's book, The Universal Christ. Do you concur with the statement that we must consciously hold on to a positive thought or feeling for a minimum of 15 seconds before it leaves any imprint in the neuron? I haven't heard that. But my view on that is that it's not about replacing negative thoughts with positive thoughts. It's about replacing thinking with being. It's about replacing thinking with being aware, and awareness doesn't require thought. Awareness doesn't. You are when right now. If you look around the room, you're aware of everything that you see, yes? You don't have to go from one thing to the next. Okay, that's a chair, this is the floor. You don't have to relearn everything, right? Awareness can immediately recognize everything, right? And so we don't need to worry about whether our thoughts are positive or negative. What we have to deal with is whether we're identifying with the thoughts, right? If you're identifying with the thoughts, then you have to worry about whether they're positive or negative, right? Because they're my thoughts, and the thoughts are going to have an effect on me, right? But if you're not identified with the thoughts can be whatever they are. Positive, negative, true, false, crazy, sane, it doesn't matter. They're just thoughts. That's the most important thing, is that you see a thought as a thought, and a thought is not a reality, it's a thought. Meaning it's an interpretation, and the thoughts are always coming from past experience. So my answer to that, and I don't want to argue with Rick Hansen, he's a brain scientist, or Richard Rohr, but that's my answer, and I'm sticking with it. So I really appreciate it. See, it really helps to have the questions, doesn't it? Because then we can deal with these things in very clear terms that are realistic in terms of the stuff that you're dealing with all the time, right? And I want to really encourage you, I've been saying this recently, to really check out the Zoom meetings that Paul Hederman's doing, because those meetings have really become very powerful in terms of people asking him questions, and then the way Paul talks about it is he says, I riff on it. Do you know what the word riff means? No, riff. Yeah, I riff on it. Riff is a term that comes from jazz, right? And when a jazz player is playing their instrument, right, they leave the melody and they riff on it, right? So, Yeah, so they do their own thing, and what Paul says, he riffs on it. In other words, he answers your question and then he just lets it come through him, whatever it seems appropriate to say that might be useful, like that. Okay.